People always assumed I had it easy. I'm 24, tall, broad-shouldered, bearded, and carry the kind of deep voice that makes people pause when I speak. On the surface, I'm the textbook definition of masculine, the kind of guy who turns heads at the gym and gets nods of approval from strangers. But my body has always felt like a contradiction I couldn't fully explain, and growing up with it was anything but easy. I take after both my parents in strangely distinct ways. My height and facial features mirror my dad's side. Rugged, solid, the kind of frame built for lumberyards or football. But my shape below the chest was inherited from my mother. Wide hips, thick thighs, a backside that people commented on long before they had any right to. I remember the teasing in middle school, the sideways jokes in locker rooms, the way even my coaches would smirk when I walked away. Milkshake, they called me. At 13, I didn't know what that meant. By 15, I understood all too well. I used to hate mirrors. I would stand in front of them after a shower, towel wrapped tightly around my waist, hoping one day my body would look like the others. Leaner, straighter, less curved. I believed if I worked out enough, ate clean enough, trained hard enough, I could burn away the softness. And I did change. In college, I got serious about lifting. I shed weight, gained muscle, reshaped my upper body into something I was proud of. My arms thickened, my chest broadened, and my shoulders grew square. But the shape around my waist, hips, and legs never left. If anything, training made it more prominent. My strength gave it definition, not disappearance. Dating was complicated. I tried girls first, charming, polite, even romantic. And it worked for a while. I dated a girl named Allison for almost a year. She liked that I was attentive, that I held doors open and listened well. But something inside me always felt disconnected, like I was pretending to be someone I didn't fully understand. I would convince myself that I was just too focused on school or not ready for something serious. But that wasn't true. The truth was buried under years of learned performance. Eventually, I tried dating guys, but only certain kinds. Lean, younger-looking guys, the kind that made me feel like I was in control. I leaned into that role, the confident, dominant type. And for a while, it became a mask I wore so convincingly I nearly believed it. I told myself that was all I wanted, that I didn't need anything else. But deep down, that wasn't the whole story. There were parts of me I kept locked away. Parts of my identity I was too scared to explore, even with myself. What made things harder was that some of my fantasies didn't match the image I projected. I didn't just want to be seen as the strong one. I wanted to be wanted, desired. Not for how I looked in photos or how many plates I could lift at the gym, but for the very parts of me I was taught to hide. I wanted someone to crave the softness in me, the curves I'd grown up resenting, the contradictions that made me, me. Looking back, I think the hardest part wasn't hiding it from others. It was hiding it from myself. Convincing myself that if I just kept pushing, kept lifting, kept pretending, eventually the real version of me would disappear. But it never did. And maybe that's the most important thing I've learned. That pretending doesn't erase anything. It just buries it deeper. Until one day, it starts clawing its way back to the surface. Now, I've stopped fighting with my reflection. I still wear shirts that fit tight across the chest and pants that don't always flatter. But I've started to accept that my body isn't wrong. It's just mine, and maybe, just maybe, it's worth showing up for, in all its weird, strong, beautiful contradictions. That acceptance didn't come from a single moment. It came from many small ones. A look, a comment, a shift in the way I walked down the street. And one day someone looked at me, really looked, and didn't laugh or tease or try to change me. They just smiled. That's when I realized maybe I've been looking at myself the wrong way all along. I met Nolan during my sophomore year of college, and he immediately became the kind of friend who slipped into your life like he'd always belonged there. We lived in the same dorm building, a few doors down, and by winter break, we were inseparable. Study partners, gym buddies, late-night drive companions. He had this magnetic energy, tall, lean, sun-kissed skin, a sharp jawline under a mop of sandy blonde hair, and a smile that could diffuse any tension. He was the kind of guy everyone noticed, and he carried it like he had no idea. Nolan was effortlessly confident without being arrogant. He could walk into a room and somehow make the shyest person feel like they belonged. I'd catch myself watching him sometimes, how he talked, how he laughed with his whole chest, how his eyes lit up when he was passionate about something. It wasn't just admiration, I knew that. I just didn't have the words for what it was back then. We shared a wall that year, and sometimes I swear I could hear his dreams through the drywall. The first night he had a girl over, I didn't sleep. I wasn't angry or uncomfortable, just frozen. Lying there, pillow over my head, heart racing for reasons I didn't understand yet. I'd see him at breakfast the next morning, his hair still messy, and he'd smirk like he knew. "Sleep okay, milkshake?" he'd tease. That nickname started early, a reference to my build, especially my legs and hips. It should have embarrassed me, but when Nolan said it, it landed differently. It wasn't mean. It was playful, knowing, affectionate in a way I couldn't quite decode. Over the months, the teasing turned into a rhythm. He'd flick my thigh at the gym and say, "Bet you could crack a watermelon with those." I'd roll my eyes and mutter, something sarcastic. But secretly, I lived for it. For the attention, for the jokes only we understood. For the nights we'd sit on the floor eating takeout and talking about nothing, and I'd pretend not to notice how close our shoulders had gotten. What I never told him, what I never told anyone, was that those little moments fed something in me I'd been starving. I started imagining things, like what it would be like to wake up next to him, what it would feel like if he reached for me instead of just nudging me with a gym towel. I hated myself for it at first. I'd go on dates just to shake the feeling, to convince myself I was still in control of what I wanted. But every time he laughed at one of his own bad jokes or stole the last slice of pizza from my plate, I felt it all over again. After college, we drifted a bit. Different cities, different lives, but the connection never really broke. We texted often, called now and then. Every once in a while we'd meet up for drinks and pick up like no time had passed. But lately, things had started to shift. We were both single again, and Nolan had been opening up more, about feeling lonely, about not knowing what he wanted anymore. And I started responding in kind, with jokes that weren't entirely jokes, and compliments that lingered a little longer than before. I remember one night, a few weeks ago we were watching a game at his place. He bumped my shoulder and said, "You ever notice you walk like you know everyone's staring?" I raised an eyebrow. "Is that your way of saying you stare at me, Nolan?" He grinned, didn't deny it. Maybe. That moment stuck with me. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just a ripple in the water. But I felt it, the shift. And I started to wonder if he felt it too. Then came the gig. He called one afternoon, voice buzzing with energy. "Hey, I've got a work thing in Rockford this weekend. Quick overnight. My band's playing backup at this little event. Come with me. It'll be fun." I hesitated. Then he added, "Only catch is the hotel's nearly full. We'll have to share a room. Might even have to share a bed." He said it like it was no big deal, but there was a pause, like he was waiting for my reaction. I played it cool. "You think I'm scared of one night in a bed with you?" I joked. "Honestly, I think I'm the one who should be worried." He laughed. We both chuckled, but the silence after said more than the words ever could. I agreed to go, and for days afterward I couldn't stop thinking about what it might mean. I found myself planning my outfits with more intention, not to impress, but to be seen. I packed tighter shirts, cleaner lines, and I found myself holding on to hope, the quiet, aching kind. A trip, a shared room, a friend I could never forget, and maybe, just maybe, the chance to finally stop pretending. The hotel was one of those generic off-highway places, neutral beige walls, soft lighting, a vending machine in the corner humming louder than it should. Nolan pulled into the lot just after 9. We'd driven all day, crashed a sound check, helped set up the gig, and now we were both running on fumes and adrenaline. He tossed me the room key as we stepped out of the car. "Room 217. One bed, don't get any ideas." I smirked. Too late. The room was small, clean enough, with a king bed that took up most of the space. There was one chair near the window, a single nightstand between the bed and wall, and a wide dresser with a mirror above it. Nolan dropped his duffel bag onto the carpet and kicked off his shoes with a groan. "I need a shower. You go first," he said, already peeling off his jacket. I nodded, grabbing my own overnight bag and slipping into the bathroom. I let the hot water run for a while, steam curling around my reflection in the mirror. My heart was beating faster than it should have been. I knew exactly what I'd packed: the soft, white tank top that hugged my chest just right, the gray gym shorts that always clung to my thighs, and beneath it all, the lacy black underwear I kept tucked in a zipped pocket, just in case I ever got brave enough to wear it. Tonight felt like that kind of night. I changed quickly, letting the steam cling to my skin. The tank top revealed just enough, hinting at the hours I'd spent in the gym without screaming for attention. The shorts were snug, cut high around the thighs, and when I bent to grab my towel, the fabric rode up the way I knew it would. Left my overnight bag slightly unzipped, the lace peeking out just enough to be seen if someone happened to look. I stepped out of the bathroom, towel slung around my neck. Nolan was lying back on the bed, one arm tucked behind his head, scrolling on his phone. He looked up, and his eyes flicked down, pausing for half a second too long before he smirked. "Damn, Caleb. Those shorts are doing some serious work tonight." I shrugged, trying to play it cool. "They're just shorts." "Right," he said, chuckling. "Just like that tank's just a shirt." I sat at the edge of the bed, rubbing the towel through my hair. I saw his eyes dart toward my bag. He shifted, pushing himself upright, and stood to grab a bottle of water from his bag. On the way back, he passed by my side of the bed and stopped. "What's this?" he asked, pulling at the black lace peeking from my bag. I froze. "Hey, stop snooping." He held up the thong between two fingers, eyebrow raised, grinning like a kid who just uncovered a secret. "You weren't exactly hiding it," I laughed, my face heating. "It's something I wear sometimes. Makes me feel good." Nolan examined it like he was trying to decide if it was a prank. "You actually wear this?" I nodded. "When I feel like it. Usually not around people I know." He looked at me for a beat longer, then tossed it back onto my bag. "Honestly, I wouldn't have guessed, but I don't hate it." That grin again. Mischievous, curious. I smiled, nervous and a little breathless. "You surprised?" He shrugged. "A little, but you pull it off." Something unspoken passed between us. The room suddenly felt warmer. Nolan moved to the bathroom next. I heard the water start, then stop, then the shuffle of clothes being removed. I sat still, staring at my reflection in the darkened TV screen, wondering if I had pushed too far, or not far enough. My heart pounded as the minutes dragged. When he returned, he wore nothing but a pair of loose sweats and a towel slung over his shoulder. His chest glistened slightly from the steam, and he looked comfortable, unbothered. But his eyes flicked over me again, and this time there was something softer in them. "Bed's all yours," I said, scooting to the far side and pulling the covers back. He climbed in without hesitation, lying on top of the sheets, arms folded behind his head. "You always pack surprises like that when you travel?" he asked. I turned toward him. "Only when the company's worth it." He let out a soft laugh. "Fair enough." The room dimmed as we turned out the lights. For a long while, neither of us spoke. I could hear his breathing, the occasional creak of the mattress as he shifted. Every time his shoulder brushed mine, I felt it like a spark. At one point, he spoke, voice low. "You ever think about telling someone? About all of it?" I swallowed. "Sometimes. Depends on the someone." There was another pause, then, "Good answer." Sleep didn't come easily. My mind raced with the what-ifs, the imagined outcomes, the ache of uncertainty. Nolan shifted beside me, his arm brushing mine again. And this time, it didn't move away. We didn't say anything else. We didn't touch, not really. But I lay there, fully aware of every inch between us, and every bit of tension that filled the space. And for the first time in years, I wasn't trying to run from it. The clock on the nightstand blinked past 1 a.m. Outside, the highway hummed in the distance, soft and steady. The room was dim, the glow of the street lamp casting faint gold shadows across the ceiling. I could hear Nolan's breathing, slow even. But I knew he wasn't asleep. Neither was I. I lay on my back, eyes tracing the lines of the ceiling tiles, heart beating like a quiet drum. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, just thick. Like the air was full of everything we hadn't said, and maybe wouldn't, unless someone took the first step. "I didn't pack that underwear by accident, you know," I said suddenly. Nolan turned his head toward me. "Yeah, I figured." A beat passed. "Did it bother you?" He didn't answer right away. "No," he said finally. "It surprised me. But it didn't bother me." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. "It's not exactly something I wear around friends." Nolan rolled onto his side, propping his head on his hand. "But you packed it anyway." I nodded, eyes still on the ceiling. "I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I wanted you to see it. Maybe I just wanted to feel like myself without hiding it." Another pause. "I'm glad you did," he said quietly. I turned my head toward him, trying to read his face in the dim light. "Yeah?" He nodded. "I like when people are real, even if it catches me off guard." I stared at him, trying to decide if I should say more. My palms felt sweaty. My mouth went dry, but I couldn't hold it in anymore. "There's a lot about me people don't really know," I said. "I used to think I had to be a certain way, that if I just leaned into what people expected, everything else would go away." "You mean guys?" I nodded. "You've been with guys before?" "Yes," I said, but only in ways I thought I could control. Always the one leading. Always the one in charge. It felt safer that way. He was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Is that what you want?" I blinked. "Honestly, not really. I think I just wanted to be wanted, for who I actually am." "What about now?" I hesitated. "Now, I'm trying to stop pretending. I'm trying to accept that I like being looked at, that I like feeling soft sometimes, that I want someone who doesn't make me feel like I have to perform just to be accepted." Nolan lay back on the pillow, staring at the ceiling now too. "I always thought you had everything figured out," he said. I let out a soft laugh. "I'm good at pretending. You know," he continued, "I've never really thought about this stuff for myself. I mean, I've always dated women, still do. But lately I've been wondering if that's the whole story." My heart skipped. "You have?" He nodded. "Being around you again, the way you carry yourself now, it's different. It's like you've stopped trying to be someone else. It's kind of inspiring, actually." That word sat heavy in my chest. Inspiring. He turned his head again, his face just a few inches from mine. "And the truth is, when I saw that underwear, I didn't laugh, I didn't feel weird, I just felt something." I swallowed. "Something?" His smile was faint. "Curiosity, admiration, maybe a little jealousy. I don't know." "Jealousy? You're brave, Caleb. You're still figuring things out, yeah, but you're honest about it. I admire that." We lay there in silence again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was full of something warmer, something careful. "I used to fantasize about you," I said quietly, barely above a whisper. He didn't flinch. "I know." I turned sharply. "You do?" "I figured it out in college. The way you looked at me sometimes. The way you got quiet when we were alone. I wasn't sure, but I wondered." I felt my cheeks burn. "Why didn't you say anything?" He shrugged. "I didn't want to make you uncomfortable. And truthfully, I didn't know how I felt about it. But it never weirded me out. If anything, I felt flattered." We both laughed gently at that, tension slipping into something softer. He looked at me again, more serious now. "Do you still?" "Still what?" "Fantasize." I hesitated. "Yeah. Sometimes." He didn't move, but his eyes lingered. "And if I told you I've thought about what it'd be like to kiss you?" I felt my breath catch. I'd say, I whispered. I've thought about that too. We didn't move. We didn't lean in. But it was all there, in the way our hands brushed beneath the covers, in the way our breathing slowed together. There was no rush, no sudden moment of passion, just two people learning how to meet in the middle of a long-held silence. He reached over, gently taking my hand. His thumb brushed mine. I don't know where this goes, he said softly. Neither do I whispered. But I'm okay with that. He turned on his side, his back against mine. I shifted slightly, letting our spines align, the distance between us dissolving into something quiet and close. The warmth of his presence was grounding, like I'd found a part of myself I didn't know I'd been missing. Outside, a truck rumbled past. Inside, the world was still. I closed my eyes and felt the slow, steady rhythm of his breathing. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself rest. I woke up to the smell of cheap hotel coffee and the soft clatter of plastic cutlery. Sunlight was creeping in through the gaps in the curtains, casting golden stripes across the bedspread. For a second, I wasn't sure where I was. Then I saw Nolan, crouched over a paper bag near the dresser, unwrapping breakfast sandwiches with a focused look on his face. "You're up," he said, looking over his shoulder. His hair was a mess, and his voice was still rough from sleep. "Barely," I mumbled, rubbing my eyes. "What time is it?" "Almost 9. I figured I'd let you sleep a little. You looked peaceful." I stretched, feeling the familiar stiffness in my shoulders. The sheets still held the warmth from our bodies, and I realized how close we'd been all night. Back to back, but not just physically. There was a connection I couldn't ignore now, and I wasn't sure I wanted to. He handed me a wrapped sandwich and a lukewarm cup of coffee. I sat up, the sheets pooling at my waist, and took it with a quiet thanks. "So," he said, sitting at the edge of the bed, "did we survive our first night as unofficial roommates?" "Depends," I said with a smirk. "Did I snore?" "Like a freight train," he teased. "But you made up for it by keeping your cold feet on your side." I laughed. "I'll try harder tonight." He raised an eyebrow. "Tonight?" I shrugged, sipping my coffee. "Assuming you don't kick me out after checkout." "Oh, I wouldn't dream of it," he said, voice teasing, but soft. The conversation drifted into easy banter. Stories from college, jokes about how bad the coffee was, playful arguments over who had the better hair. But underneath the words was something else, something unspoken and steady. He glanced at my outfit as I leaned to grab my phone from the nightstand, the tank top clinging to my chest, the hem of my shorts rising just a little too high. His eyes lingered a beat longer than usual. "You always dress like that for breakfast?" he asked. "Only when the company's worth impressing," I said without thinking. He grinned, clearly amused. "Good answer." There was a pause, the kind that could have led somewhere if either of us dared to move. I looked at him, really looked. His eyes were soft, his mouth slightly parted like he was about to say something but hadn't decided what. "You ever think about last night?" I asked quietly. "About what it meant." His smile faded, but not in a bad way. He seemed to consider it. "Yeah," he said. "I thought about it the whole time I was walking to get food, about how easy it felt, about how I didn't want to mess it up by overthinking it." I nodded, my pulse quickening. "Me too." He leaned back on his hands, still sitting on the edge of the bed, looking at me with that same unreadable expression. It didn't feel strange. That surprised me. "Yeah?" I asked. "Yeah. I've never felt that kind of closeness with someone like that. It wasn't about sex or labels or anything. It was just us." We sat in silence again, the kind that was starting to feel more like a comfort than a gap. I set down my coffee and swung my legs over the side of the bed, so we were facing each other. "I don't know what this is," I said honestly. "I don't expect you to know either. But I feel good around you. I feel seen." He looked down, then back up. "That means a lot, Caleb. Because I see you. I do. And I think maybe I've been seeing you for longer than I realized." Our knees bumped gently as we sat there. My breath caught in my throat. His hand twitched like he might reach for mine, but he didn't. Not yet. I thought for a second he might lean in, and I wasn't sure whether I wanted him to or not, or if I was just scared of what it would mean if he did. But instead, he smiled, that crooked, sincere smile I'd always remembered from college, and he nudged me with his knee. "Let's take it slow," he said. "Okay? Okay." He stood up and stretched, then looked around for his shirt. "We've got a long drive ahead," he said. "But you're riding shotgun," I chuckled. "I always do." He turned back as he grabbed his keys from the dresser. "And Caleb?" "Yeah?" "You looked good this morning, just saying." I blinked, caught off guard by how direct it was, but I smiled, and I didn't hide it. "Thanks." He held my gaze for another second, then turned and headed toward the yacht door. I stayed seated for a moment, letting it all sink in. Something had changed between us. Not in an explosive way, but like the quiet shifting of earth beneath your feet. You don't always notice it at first, but then you realize everything feels a little different, a little more real. As I stood to grab my bag, I looked in the mirror, across from the bed. For the first time, I didn't fix my posture or tug my shirt. I just looked, and what I saw, what I allowed myself to see, was someone who wasn't hiding anymore. And that, more than anything, made me feel whole. We got back to the city just after sunset. The drive home had been filled with music, inside jokes, and the kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty. Nolan and I didn't talk much about what happened that night in the hotel or the morning after, but we didn't avoid it either. It was there, in the way we looked at each other, in the silences. That felt comfortable instead of awkward. Something had shifted, and we were both letting it happen without needing to label it. Over the next few days, we texted more than usual. Not just memes or quick check-ins, but longer messages. He'd send me photos from his gigs, me tuning in, even when the audio was rough and the lighting was worse. I'd reply with videos from the gym, or ask if he wanted to try a new place for burgers. Sometimes we didn't say much, but the way he responded, quickly, warmly, told me everything I needed to know. Tuesday night, he texted, "You around? Friday?" "Yeah, what's up?" "Thinking beers at my place. Just us. You in?" Always. It was simple, casual on the surface, but my chest tightened a little when I read it. I found myself smiling without realizing it, walking home with earbuds in, playing the same song on loop, just because it reminded me of that road trip. Friday came faster than expected. I stood outside his apartment building for a moment before ringing the buzzer, running a hand over my hair, not to fix it, just to feel grounded. He opened the door in sweatpants and a soft hoodie, barefoot, grinning like he'd been waiting for me all week. "Hey," he said. "Glad you made it." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied. Inside, the lights were dim. A playlist hummed low from a speaker in the corner. Mellow, guitar-heavy, the kind of music that filled space without overtaking it. Nolan handed me a cold bottle and led me to the couch. It felt normal, easy, but something else was alive. Between us now, unspoken but present. We talked about work, our routines, upcoming gigs. He joked about starting a band with a name so bad it made me snort beer through my nose. I told him he'd never live it down. He said he hoped he wouldn't. Not if it made me laugh like that again. Later, we ended up sitting closer. Not touching, but the gap between us felt charged. Every time he leaned in to say something, I caught myself holding my breath. And I swear, he noticed. His eyes kept flicking toward me, not in discomfort, but with something careful. Curious. Eventually, the conversation slowed. The music faded into something soft and wordless. We sat in the quiet, the empty bottles lined up on the coffee table, like a scoreboard. He turned to me, his expression unreadable. "I've been thinking about that night," he said. I didn't pretend not to know which one he meant. "Me too. I still don't have the right words for what I'm feeling," he said, "but I know I haven't stopped thinking about it." "I don't need the perfect words," I said, "just honesty." He nodded slowly, eyes locked with mine. "Then here's the truth. I've never felt more like myself than I did that night. With you." My throat tightened. I looked down for a second, then back up. That means a lot. He reached out, not suddenly, just naturally, and placed a hand on my shoulder. It was steady, familiar, but intimate in a way that made the air feel heavier. "I don't know where this is going," he said, "but I want to keep finding out." I swallowed hard, nodding. Me too. Neither of us moved for a while. We just sat in that moment. Two people who had always known each other, slowly seeing each other for the first time. Eventually, I stood, stretching. I should head out. Nolan walked me to the door, his hand brushing mine as we reached the threshold. I turned to say goodbye, expecting a wave or maybe a shoulder bump, but instead, he leaned in, slow, unsure, and pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. It was brief, but it sent a wave of warmth down my spine. When he pulled back, he didn't speak. He just smiled, gentle, calm, and looked at me like there was nowhere else he'd rather be. I stepped out into the night air, my heart full and quiet at the same time. The city buzzed around me, headlights streaking past, people rushing by. But I walked slowly, purposefully. I didn't have answers. I didn't know if this would become something more, or if we were still in the middle of figuring it all out. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't worried about where it was headed. I didn't need a label. I didn't need certainty. Just needed this feeling. The honesty, the closeness, the sense that I was finally stepping into the life I'd been afraid to claim. And as I turned the corner onto my street, my thoughts drifted back to Nolan's smile, the warmth of his hand, the quiet between our words. I don't know what's next, but for once I'm ready.